John Cassavetes originally wrote A Woman Under the Influence as a stage play. As noted by Jeff King, Cassavetes' focus was more on the delineation of the complex and ambiguous characters he created, rather than the plot itself. And although at times the film gave the impression of spontaneity, this was not exactly the case. Improvisation was restricted to rehearsals, and when filming began, the actors were given instructions and dialogue to follow. A Woman Under the Influence was shot on 35mm film, the industry standard at the time, using recently developed lightweight cameras that could be strapped to the shoulder. This allowed a freedom of movement that had not been possible for traditional Hollywood films. Like many American independent films that followed, Cassavetes cinema strove to achieve verisimilitude. He rejected the more costly mainstream production methods and chose instead to create the impression that the events were being captured as they unfolded through dynamic movements of the camera. To allow the actors to fully explore their characters with full freedom to move around the performance space, he would film the scenes in sequential order from a distance using a telephoto lens, as well as taking long shots up close using a handheld camera. In her paper on Cassavetes, Yvonne Margulies identified the recurring theme in his cinema of struggling to adhere to societal norms. This is a theme that Mabel exemplifies perfectly. Jenna Rowland's performance portrays a woman who's having to try extremely hard to act as the person she's expected to be by those around her. Cassavetes is drawing attention to the fragility of a woman who's trapped in the restraints of the patriarchal life at the time. Although she is depicted as crazy, she is also shown to be a functional and attentive wife and mother. Rowland can be seen throughout the film performing tics such as scrunching up her face and contorting her fingers in an unusual way. It is clear that she is a little bit different, but this is taken to mean different things to the different people in her life. If we look at the scene where Nick introduces Mabel to his co-workers, we can see that there are expectations being placed on how she is to behave. When one of the men begins to sing at the table, she's overcome with childlike awe and curiosity. It cuts to some of the other men at the table to show their reactions of confusion and discomfort. Mabel then tries to replicate what she's just seen, and Nick shouts at her, demanding her to sit back down.
Get your ass down!
Causing her to sulk like a toddler. It's interesting to note how it's acceptable for the men to draw attention to themselves and perform, but disconcerting for a woman to do the same. Let's take a look at another scene where Mabel self-consciously asks her children what they think of her.
When you see me, do you feel, oh, I know her, that's Mom? Or do you ever think of me as dopey or mean or
No, you're smart, you're pretty, you're nervous too.
To her children, who she entertains, feeds and cares for, these tics she displays are just her mannerisms which they accept as part of who she is. However, to the adults in her life, this indicates there's something intrinsically wrong with her that must be addressed and amended. Rowland is portraying a character who feels she must always be playing the role of the housewife. We see this through the variety of temperaments that change depending on who she is with. But when she's on her own, she seems to be expressionless without anyone to reflect the image she thinks she needs to be. In the scene after the incident with Nick's co-workers, we see her begging her husband to tell her what to be. Her demeanour quickly shifts from pleading to self-assured. This could be similar to an actor proving to the director that she's the right person for the role, and shows just how disconnected from her true self she is. In an interview, Peter Falk addressed the ambiguity of Rowland's performance.
And I am not saying that the scene, the way Jenna did it wasn't realer than the scenes that I experienced in life, but it was more affecting. I saw a woman in front of me that was aware that she didn't sound right. Her voice was too shrill, and she was aware that she didn't look right, and she was also aware of a panic bubbling up inside of her. So she knew how fragile she was. And the madness came in. It was like a raging river. It just engulfed her, and she was gone. I remember saying my lines, but I didn't say, I wasn't aware of acting. I was aware of watching. I was watching.
Throughout the film, Cassavetes uses the hallway as a performance space for Mabel's episodes, complete with the room divider being used as the closing curtain. When the show is over, Mabel returns to her domestic duties of putting her children to bed and tidying. This dual characterization leads to the question of Mabel's sanity. By keeping an element of ambiguity, he brings the question of, is she actually crazy, or is she just not able to meet the social norms?